Hey everybody, it's Bruce from Nature Calls, and I am embarking on another underquilt, and I have to make a lot of underquilts because I have a lot of people in my family, and I also go in different temperatures, and I like to make underquilts and hammocks and all that. So this underquilt is going to be for a really cold. I'm going to be doing a 4-inch baffle, and that's where you get the designation really of how cold something goes, or how cold a sleeping bag goes, or top quilt or underquilt, is how big the baffles are and what kind of down you use in it. And 4-inch baffles, you're definitely getting down in that 0-degree range. And of course I won't know until I really use it, but the down I'm using is 850 fill power down. It's the water treated or water repellent treated down from Dutch. I got a pound of that, 16 ounces of that. The length of the underquilt will be 6 feet with 4-inch baffles. It should take me to about 0. And I may need to put in some more, who knows. I've got some ideas going with it. Some of the things that people ask are what kind of needles should you use with, especially this is the Argon, I think it's 67, or any type of like ripstop or nylon. You use the extra sharp type of needles, and I'm using a, must be the 7010. So it's pretty small, very sharp. Always use a fresh needle. And this is the Gutenberg, Guten whatever, Samara 70 you get. It's a polyester thread. This is the Argon 67. This is yellow. This will be the fabric that goes right next to the bottom of the hammock. I always like the idea of having a bright color in case you need to use it for, say, signaling. The outside, or the part that you would see, I'm going to do stripes. I've got, again, Argon 67. Here's the black, and there's a shiny side and a dull side. Haven't quite decided on what I'm going to do there, but I'm going to mix that in so it'll be striped, and this is the gray Argon 67. So that, as I do the different lengths, and I guess mainly what this style is I've done, like with the bug netting, I've done Caro step, and this is what I feel is like a real easy way to accomplish getting that same thing as all the rest. What I found is I like to be able to move my down around and move. I don't want to take a lot of time to move it around. If I need to move my down around, say more underneath my butt, or in different spaces, I want to be able to move it fairly easily and quickly. With the way I make my baffle, my tubes, they're all one piece. There's nothing blocking the movement. Hopefully, if I have enough down, the down won't move. Really, it's just going to be stagnant, and that's the whole thing about insulation. Is you want it not to move. You want it just to have enough in there so it just stays still and it traps that dead air. So that is how I'm going to do it. I did a similar one. I'll put the link to the video. It talks more in design on paper, so if you want to see what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll see that as I go along. I started off and I got 2 yards of black, 2 yards of gray, and 2 yards of the yellow, and I ended up having to order another 2 yards of the black because I'm going to do 9 channels, and I didn't have enough for that. Here's the bungee cord that will be used for the suspension. I've got the other little clips and things already. And then I got, what else did I get? Some more bungee cord. Now this is Ripstop by the Roll's new, it's not grow grain, it's a webbing. It's a very high strength webbing that I'm going to be trying out. I think this is going to be really great for like tarp tie outs. I'll put the specs down below. This is supposed to be a super high strength webbing. This is a 3/8 width. So this is what I'll be using for some aspects of the tarp. And this is the 1-inch grow grain. That's how I like to do my side channels for the suspension. You can do it without it. You don't need to do this. I just like to. The end, I won't have any of the grow grain on there, because I usually, when I set the end parts to keep the air from moving in, that stays the same. So that is all, more or less all the stuff. Oh, the ripstop by the roll sticker, gotta love to have that. Maybe I should plant that on there. So let's get started, and I've got one more strip to cut of this, and I did a video on how I cut my stuff with my new jig, and I'll put a link to that, but I'll show you how I do that with one of these. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so here I have my jig that I made, and I'll put a link to how I did this, but it just makes it easy to cut the nylon cleanly using a little soldering pen and in a straight line. And so I've got it set. I'm doing a kind of striped effect on the bottom, and so this just makes it super easy to cut, and it cauterizes it at the same time in a straight line. I've got this black strip. I'm going to have black, gray, black, gray, black. Well, it'll be 9, so it'll be 5 black, 4 gray. So the way I do my baffles is a certain portion of this piece will be my baffle, and then I lay the next piece on top, sew it down, and then this flips over the top. It creates a baffle and sews the 2 pieces together. So I'm going for a 4-inch baffle, so what I need is a line to sew by. I need a 1/2 inch for when I'm going to be sewing it to the yellow piece, and then I need 4 inches, and then minus a 1/2 inch. So a 4-inch baffle, then minus a 1/2 inch for the gray piece, because that'll be a 1/2 inch as well again. So I need to make some marks, and what works really well are these silver Sharpies. Just don't make a ton of them, because if they do show through, or if you don't sew it right, then you see these little silver marks. So I'm going to put a few silver marks, and then I might come back with my tailor's chalk, and just to help me out. But right now I just need to make a nice straight line that I can sew the gray onto the black. So here again, these pieces are 13 inches wide, and what that took into account is a 1/2 inch for sewing this piece to either the next piece or to the yellow underpiece, 4-inch baffle, then a 1/2 inch on this side over here, so that's 5 inches, so that leaves 13 minus 5 is 8, so I'll get an 8-inch kind of puff. And so that's it should work. Could be, we'll see. If it doesn't work, then the next one will be different. So I'm going to mark this on out at half inch to there, and 4 inches is 4.5, and back 1/2 inch is 4, just like that. I'm just going to put little dots. Now the other thing about this fabric, I don't know if you can tell, but this side of the Argon is kind of a flat color. This side is shiny, and I want the shiny to be on the outside, facing the weather, and then the flat will be inside with the down. I don't think it really makes a big difference. It's probably a very minute difference, but one of the big things with underquilts is, that I see a lot of, is people using underquilt protectors, and I don't really have anything against underquilt protectors. I just don't see the necessity of them, because this fabric has a DWR, a durable water repellent, already on it. And my other underquilts that are just like this also have that. And even if it's pouring rain and I get a little bit of splash up, it's not soaking in to the fabric or into the down just by gravity. It won't go in, and it's treated, so there's really not a lot of absorption either. So the underquilt's hanging down, it gets splash up on it. I'll look underneath there might be a couple little drops, and I just hit my underquilt really hard and the drops fall right off. So, but having the shiny outside, maybe I'm a little crazy, but I think that will help in keeping it from even more water. Okay, so I've got the gray lined up with this black, so this piece right here is going to be my baffle, and then we just kind of keep flipping it over as we go along. I'll show you the next piece, but what I do is on my sewing machine, a little button that drops the needle, so now all the fabric is held by that needle. I can line up my little silver dots and start to sew. I don't pin. This fabric is so light, and already putting holes in it is already hurting it. So the less holes, the better. Let's get everything lined up. So I'll just give it a good tension. Make sure things are lined up. And I'm not a fast sewer, so I will just kind of take my time and even turn that down until I get used to it. A couple stitches to get going. Back stitch. So I'm putting that 1/2 inch seam on it. I'll just line up my next set of dots, and yeah, this is going to take me a while, but I'm not in a hurry. And double check every once in a while, make sure your fabric isn't bunching up underneath at all. Just make sure everything's flat. Take your time. Well, the other thing, one of the things that with this type of doing outdoor gear and this type of fabric, like right here I have my length, and to get 8 stitches per inch, I found on my machine I have to set that to 3.5. It's a straight cut, but even if I turn my sewing machine off, then that'll reset. So I need to always make sure that that's set at 3.5, because when it resets, it sets it back to like 2.5, and that's just a ton of holes. When you start sewing, it just punches a ton of holes. That's for regular clothing, but we want as little holes as we can get away with. So double check or figure out what on your machine does that. Okay, so now I've got those sewed together. So what happens is this folds over. So this little strip right there becomes my baffle. That folds over like that. Now this becomes the next fresh piece. So this is the shiny side. And then I'll put the next black strip on. I'll put that dull side up, or actually be like that. I'll sew it again like that. The same, I'll measure up. We'll sew along that, and this will then fold over and this becomes the baffle. So just going to measure that out and we'll sew it up. Okay, so now I've got the whole outer done, and you can see the stripe effect, hopefully. Now this is the outer part, so now I'll turn it over, show you how the baffles work. So here you see each baffle is this section right here. I've got tons of baffles that I'll be sewing onto the yellow. So next to do is to mark the yellow, and I'm going to be marking it at every 6 1/4 inches, so I get 9 sections on the yellow part that this will all be sewed onto. Right, so now I've marked off on the yellow 6 1/4 inch little marks. You can barely see them. That's the point. If you go too dark, you can see right through. Like if you use like a black Sharpie or something like that. So use a really light one, as light as you can get away with. I like the silver, it seems to work really well. But I've also set it off so when I put the baffles in, I'll be lining up the baffle edge with the line. And so it's a little bit longer. This one's a little bit longer. I'll start here and then the baffle edge, baffle edge, baffle edge, baffle edge. Alright, so time to get going. Now the first thing I sew is the very outside hem, and so I've got the faces, the outsides, the nice sides facing each other, and then when I turn it around, then it'll hide this hem. It's not that necessary to do because I'll have the grosgrain, but it will definitely make it look that much nicer for little certain aspects of it. But it's just a little something to make it look nicer. Now I've switched to the yellow thread as well. So now I've turned it right side out, and this is a baffle piece right here. So this is a baffle, and I'm just gonna let it run down the silver lines that I made on the yellow piece. But this is where you really got to make sure you don't get any extra folds coming in there. So take your time and find my foot pedal. I'll do all the different baffles. Be back in action. This is one of those things where you get sick and you get delayed and all kinds of things. So this is my underquilt's been sitting on this table now for probably a couple of weeks, but I am done with putting together the outer stripes and the inner and the baffles. So here you can see how it all came about. So they're all these box baffles. There's about 4 inches of baffle depth, and all the chambers are full-length chambers. And that's the way I personally like to do it. I don't like to do the Caro step, because when you've got an underquilt on, you don't need feathers in certain areas. And if you're a little bit cold, it's nice to be able to move those feathers to where you need them. One of the things, though, when putting this all together, I had one edge, and this is the edge that was always true. So everything kind of was based off of this edge, and the other edge was just kind of whatever random. So now what I'm going to do is true up that edge with my fancy little deal here and get a straight edge on that one, and then I'll be folding over the edge here, getting it ready for filling, and putting grosgrain ribbons on the side, and we're getting closer to the feathers. So let's true up this edge. And I've got this edge in here, and I want to make it as long as I can. Got my hot soldering iron there. Now what I'm going to do is just pull this all, hopefully at one time. I'm going to true up this whole edge as long as I can. Good enough. What's nice is, you can get everything as perfect as you want, but when everything's scrunched up, in the end, it's really not mission critical. So now I will just run down, make sure my ends are nice and tight. Do not drop this. This will just put a hole right through it all. This thin fabric. So I'm just going to be cutting through every layer. go. Nice. This works really nice. Get everything nice and true. I'm gonna put that right there to make everything real careful at this point in time. Unplug it. I'm just going to let that cool down. Nice. And this side was nice. Now this edge is going to be all cauterized, so I'll go ahead and this will be the side that I sew up and close off at the end, and I'll fill my down from the other end. So you might as well take advantage of the time waiting for that hot item to cool down and just start up another hot appliance and do my grow grain ironing. And this just helps because this will be going on the sides of my underquilt, and I'll be running a shock cord through it so I can have it adjustable. I like to be able to have my grow grain, be able to move my underquilt from, you know, the lengthwise. Just seems to be something that I like. So this is a 1-inch grow grain, which is about as thin as I can go. If you've never done it before, I do something like 1.5 inches. But what I do is I just fold it in half now before I have to use it, and then just do a quick little ironing and kind of get it ironed in half. It just makes it a lot easier. And I've got like 25 feet of this stuff, so I'm going to be using it for this purpose. So I'm just going to sit here and iron for a while. But having all these hot utensils and having a fire smoke detector that's not plugged in with a battery makes it all worthwhile. Okay, so at this point I'm going to lock in one of my ends so I can fill it with the down, and this is also going to be the end adjustment channel, and decided that I'm going to have it yellow so I can do that. So I'm going to fold that in. And I find, you know, that this side here is all open more. And so it's going to be bigger, so I'm going to have it crunch a little bit. And yeah, the Husky colors, the University of Washington Husky colors, in a way. I just did make a Husky hammock for my neighbor, and that turned out pretty good. So I'm going to just fold it over about 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to fold it over another 3/4 of an inch. That's going to give me a little bit of rigidity there, a little bit of strength for where that cord goes through. I'm going to lose, you know, 1.5 inches on each end to do it that way, but I'm willing to do that. So just going to sew right next to that edge there, kind of just maneuver my way along. And I haven't used my sewing machine for a few days, so I got to make sure I got my length set. So this is where I just roll it under. And I just use my fingers to kind of feel it. And I put a lot of tension on it. And then I just kind of sew. Back up lock stitch. And just go right along. Perfecto. And then I'm just going to make sure I pull out underneath here to make sure it doesn't get stuck. And this will lock up the other end. I'll leave the other end open, of course, to put the feathers in. Okay, so now I'm going to put my grow grain along the long edge. So I need to make sure those are flat. And then I'm going to start about 1.5 inches down from this end, because I'm going to be folding this closed after I get the feathers in it. And the 1-inch grow grain, which is, I'm going to take my time because this is a lot thinner than I've ever got, a lot less width. So that goes right around that edge, right there, and it's going to go all the way down the long side. So this is going to be, Bruce, take your time and do a good job. So I just got to get everything lined up first. Okay, it's going to be kind of a heart attack the whole way. So using that drop needle is a great thing to have. Probably slow it down a little bit. Back it up to the beginning. And we go down. All right, so now it's just going to be, I'm just going to taking my time, folding it, getting it all set, and it's going to take a while, but it's going to be worth it. I'll just take my time again. And one last thing that I like to do is I add little loops along the sides of the long side. So in case I want to fix and position her and be able to add things to hold the quilt better, I just put little loops along there. And heck, it's not that big a deal to do it now. And what I use is paracord, but I don't use the whole paracord piece. So I just kind of guess, a couple inches on both sides, so 4 inches maybe, just to start off with. And I can always trim it later. But so there's the paracord, and then I just got it. So take all the guts out. So now you're just left with the outer piece, and that's like a perfect, nice little piece of webbing that I can put sew on at different spots. I put 4 on each side, and it's good, nice, durable, lightweight mini webbing. So I'm gonna sew a few of these on each side before I stuff. So I will put a loop at each end, just kind of like that, and then I'll put 2 evenly spaced down that whole long side, this whole long side where the grosgrain is. So, oh, there I missed a spot. It's also helpful so I can see where I didn't hit the mark. So let me get set up, and I will sew on some loops. Okay, this is the big moment. This is the stuffing part. I've got a bunch of clips right here, so when I get done I can clip it. And it's raining out, and some people ask, some people get all concerned about their cameras and stuff like that. My camera's actually sitting out in the rain right now. It is a waterproof camera. Yeah, so I got my scissors out here, which scissors really are the devil. I don't want to put it in my hammock or near anything if I don't have to, because they're sharp. But I need them. So here we have the quilt, and I've got my down, and this is how I stuff things. I just do it outside, and little thread trimming. Here we go. Yellow side up, so you can, oh no, I can't really see that well, but I'll just be able to see, and doing it in the daylight's great. But we'll just start at one end and start stuffing carefully. So I just open up a little bit so I can get my hand in there. I squish it down with my hand. I'll lose a couple feathers, but not a lot. There we go. So now this side over here, I was going to keep looking at it as I go along, and I can pick up some of these feathers from time to time. So far, not losing much. Okay, so this is my first time using this stuff from Dutch. I've found I can actually kind of get my hand and everything inside here, open it up, and just kind of feed it. Kind of squish it all into one of the chambers, and then kind of just feed it in like that. Key right now is just kind of roughly get it in all the channels evenly, but then I can go back and just take a handful out of each one and just transfer it over. Doing. Let's see how we did. Pull out of this one. So that looks fairly even. I'm going to pin it up and then kind of bring it in the house, let it even out, and see where I need to go. It's starting to dump rain now, but show you what pretty minimal feather loss. Yeah, there's a couple little ones, but I'll show you. So that's all the feathers that I lost, and I can pick up a few of those still, but just minimal. So I'm gonna go clip all this up and then take it in and let it fill out. All right, so after putting all the fill in and letting it expand and do all those kind of things, it just didn't look like enough feathers, and I finally figured out that I did my basis for quantity of feathers based on like a 45-inch wide underquilt, and this is actually a 55-inch wide underquilt. So what I'm going to do is, this is the first underquilt that I ever made. It's also Argon, and it's the sewn through. So I talk about sewn through as a technique. So the two sides, this is also Argon, the two sides are actually sewn all the way through, so there's no baffle in this. But when it curves around your body, it actually creates about a 1-inch baffle. So it's actually, a good summer style. You don't have to go through all the baffle stuff for the summer if you want to, not get so intense. But so this also already had like way too many feathers in it down. And so I can easily kind of lighten this one up, still maintain a nice summer quilt for it, but I'm going to transfer some of this down into my new down, and I might take all of it out, and so I've got another underquilt that I use that I need more feathers too. So this one, I might just completely revamp this one. So I'm going to cut the top of this off and start transferring into the tunnel until I get this one a nice loft. It'll probably be like, I guess, slightly overstuffed, but not super overstuffed. So key is just to get no movement. The air is just solid. If you overstuff it too much, then you have less air space. So you got to find that happy medium. So let's get to it. Okay, well, here's what I've ended up with. So this is the outer, and that's a good, actually, that's 4-inch baffle right there. It's a good 6.5 inches. I ended up probably putting another, I don't really know because I wasn't using the same exact down, but I probably added, on the original 16, gosh, maybe a good 10 to 14 more ounces of a lesser fill quality. And now I've got that fill that I want, the actual look, and it might be a little bit heavier. Those, if you can't carry a lot, maybe you got to try something different. Fortunately, I'm pretty strong, and so is Jaylene and my daughter. We're all pretty strong hikers. My sons, So adding another 10 ounces, 12 ounces isn't going to be a big deal, especially for winter hiking. So I'm happy with that. Time to close it on up. Now let's get a measurement. So there's the whole deal. On. So including the stuff sack, we are at 2.9 pounds. A little bit heavier than I wanted, but still easy enough for me to carry. All right, off we go. So now it's time to work on the suspension. And of course, as home DIYers, we don't have a big spool of elastic. So, you know, when you order, and I think I got 25 feet, you got to be able to, you know, make that all work. So I will put down my measurements when I am finished, so that might be able to help you. And now it's just a matter of, you know, working this elastic through until I can get it to where I want it. Okay, that's my good starting point. So now I'm going to cut that elastic and then be able to use that in my end channels and then make the fine adjustments to make it fit this hammock or any other hammock. God, this is going to be great. It's definitely a winter hammock. This side kind of comes up and covers more than my other ones. Yeah, it's turning out really good. Go. All right, so there we go. The extreme cold weather underquilt. So this will easily go below zero. It's definitely overbuilt. I think what I was going on, I mentioned earlier in the video, is that most of the calculations are based on a 45-inch width, and I wanted to go 55-inch width because I wanted it to be coming up a little bit around my feet and around my shoulder, and that's what this does. Of course, it took more down. Plus I did the 4-inch baffle, plus I had a rise in each one of the baffles, good 6.5 inches, so it just needed more down. So I don't know exactly what I came out with at the end because I had to use a lesser fill power, but it's going to work. It's going to be I think about 3 pounds for this build, and pretty excited about it. So now I got actually a matching top quilt for it. Jalen's pretty excited about that. But these little tabs with the paracord, I got to redo those because I think they they weren't exactly what they kind of pulled loose. So I'm going to redo that. The Argon 67 is great. The down is really fun. I'm feeling the warmth actually right now, but it turned out really well. The end channels, what I've done there, I had to go back and actually I laid the elastic and then I sewed around that with the looser end channel, as opposed to on the side channels I did the grow grain. I could definitely do this 1-inch grow grain. It was very, very difficult. So if you're going to just be making one, I go with the 1.5-inch grow grain. I just leave enough room for your end channel and sew your elastic in at as you do your end channel. Other than that, just came out great. I also put some little stops actually at the end. They're up there now, but I can actually put little stoppers down to hold the quilt in forward and backward. I've done some other things before, but I think that'll work just fine. Here's one right here, so I can just bring that down and it'll hold the quilt. I've got one at the other end, so I think that'll work just great. But yeah, awesome, psyched to get it out on the trail. Okay, thanks a lot, and I will see you out between the trees. Bye now.